Revenge of the Sith turns 20. That's right, it's been 2 decades since we first saw Anakin use Force lightning, raid the Jedi Temple, and take out Palpatine. And in this video, I wanted to revisit the console version of this classic Star Wars game to see how well it's aged in the past 2 decades. But first, let's set the scene. Prequel tie-in games were fascinating. For example, The Phantom Menace had one video game adaptation released in 1999, and then another in 2000, and another in 2001. Attack of the Clones, on the other hand, had no direct adaptations, apart from the Game Boy game, which doesn't really count. Instead, it focused on games that tied into the movie in indirect ways like Jedi Starfighter, Bounty Hunter, and the Clone Wars. But by the time we came to Revenge of the Sith, LucasArts decided to focus all their efforts on a single flagship tie-in game, and a handheld port, but the console version was the one that would have all the bells and whistles. The game's developer, a studio known as The Collective, were given access to the movie while it was still being shot in Australia. The Collective would even go a step further by getting prequel stunt coordinator and saber fight choreographer Nick Gillard to consult on the game's lightsaber combat. The developers even worked with Hayden Christensen on Anakin's combat and character movements.
With Hayden, we have something really unique. We've got someone who has trained for 11 weeks just for this movie, so he's got the muscle memory to do everything just right. And then on top of that, he plays a lot of video games, so he really knows the end application of what we're doing.
Stroke, instead of walking up to him at the normal pace that the character would. At this point, when he becomes more powerful, it's one step, and he's already there, you know?
This was the heyday of movie tie-in games, and LucasArts were firing on all cylinders. And in a rather interesting move, the publisher would actually release the game a whole 2 weeks before the movie. This was especially unusual considering that the game was packed with footage from the movie itself, including the ending. I guess Episode 3 was a bit of a unique movie because we all knew how it was gonna end. So perhaps Lucas intended to use the game as a marketing vehicle to build hype for the movie. In any case, the game was comprised of 17 missions and had you play as either Anakin or Obi-Wan. The first few levels have the 2 Jedi fight their way through the Invisible Hand looking to rescue the Chancellor. I'm playing the PlayStation 2 version, and I must say the visuals still hold up much better than many of its contemporaries.
We must use the Force to move this wreckage!
Hold on, that's one of ours. What if the clone pilot's still alive? Never mind, into the big hole it goes. This game does a good job of mixing classic hack and slash gameplay with Jedi combat. All the moves and tricks you'd expect are here, from the saber throw to classic Force powers. Whoops, sorry Master, you weren't supposed to see that yet.
Use the Force, Anakin. Good advice.
You see, if you've already completed the campaign and decide to replay some of the earlier levels, the game decides to give Anakin Force Lightning. This game also has one of the most satisfying implementations of Saber Reflect I've seen to date. Just keep an eye out on the Force meter. Overall, I think the controls and combat have actually aged really well. Sure, the fixed camera angles are a bit cumbersome, but the game does a good enough job of moving them at the right time.
Anakin, use that console!
Why are you shouting at me, Obi-Wan? This game also borrows the Return of the King progression system by having you collect points at the end of each level and then use them to upgrade all sorts of combat and force moves. And personally, I think this simple system worked really well back in the day and still works great. There is just enough unlockable variety here to keep you going. From impaling enemies with the saber, to fancy twirling, to the sonic dash, and whatever the hell he's doing here. The next level has you play as Obi-Wan and introduces these super battle droids who are just looking for a hug. Growing up, I always thought this level took place in the sewage compartment, but I have since been informed that this is actually the fuel room, which was something we saw in the deleted scenes of the movie. I also enjoy that the developers took time to give Obi-Wan and Anakin little moments throughout the in-game cutscenes.
Don't worry, Master.
I'm not worried.
This will be no problem.
Did I say I was worried?
This might be a problem.
You can tell Obi-Wan's learned his lesson from the Phantom Menace. Look, he just starts chopping at them. Anakin, you're facing the wrong way. And playing these first few levels on the Invisible Hand always made me wish that this game had a proper co-op campaign mode. What we got instead were 4 Horde levels where you and a friend could take down waves of enemies. But more on that a little later. After the first few levels, you take on Count Dooku. Also, I've always loved how Palpatine is just watching in the background. All he's missing is a popcorn bucket. Huh. Looks like the brilliant tactician Dooku isn't quite smart enough to walk around a table. Let me just zap him a tiny bit.
Yes! Good hit, Anakin.
Shut up, Palpatine, you're gonna blow our cover. This game also has the characters give the best one-liners.
Be careful, Anakin. You're running out of limbs.
Dark side? Not impressed.
Dooku also has some sassy lines here.
How is your arm healing, young man?
If you look at it face value, this is a really crazy scene. We've got a 22-year-old beating up a pensioner to rescue another pensioner.
Back off, old man.
Eventually he does, and we get an escape level. Obi-Wan, I think you forgot to turn on your lightsaber. Oh, look at this one super battle droid just blasting Palpatine. See, this here should have been the tip-off for the Jedi. What other politician can take repeated blaster bolts to the face? Hey, remember that part in the movie where Anakin hops into a cannon and blows up an entire separatist ship? Next is the battle against the Magna Guards in the control room. The ship then does a roly-poly, and we've got to fight them upside down. With the Chancellor saved, we move on to the Obi-Wan adventures on Utapau. And I'll be honest, playing this game as a kid, this batch of levels was always my least favorite part of the game. And unfortunately, 20 years later, not much has changed, mainly because a lot of it just consists of you running around these platforms, taking on hordes of droids, including these annoying, hugging super battle droids, over and over again. The second level is pretty much just another swarm stage with some more clones in the background, and then we get a boss battle against Grievous. It's set across a few different environments, but the fight itself is pretty generic apart from that one chiropractor move he does. The next section, however, is where the fun begins. Here the game takes some creative liberties and has Anakin fight Mace Windu. The fight takes place in and around Palpatine's apartment.
You have been tainted by the dark side. No! And you have failed the Jedi Order.
And this is such a cool fight, I kind of wish it made it into the movie. And the game's version of the story actually has Anakin kill Mace Windu. Alright, time for the best part of the game.
The Council is no longer in control.
Now, Order 66 was without doubt one of the best sequences in the movie, but we actually saw surprisingly little of Anakin's attack on the Jedi Temple. Luckily, the game helps us fill in the gaps with 2 levels set in the temple. And apparently, at one point, Anakin gets fed up of slaughtering the Jedi, so he just uses the Force to pull down this giant statue and crush them. This level also does a good job of showing all the different areas of the temple, from the library to the courtyard to the comms room and the landing bays, where Anakin gets into another cannon and lets loose on both Jedi and Starfighter alike. I have seen a security hologram of him getting into a massive cannon. The second temple level is a boss battle against the Jedi Padawan Sarah, which takes place in this room where you can actually hear the holograms recite the Jedi code.
A Jedi shall not know hatred.
And if you damage them, they will glitch out and start reciting the Sith code.
A Jedi shall hate.
This fight also has the best ending ever.
You're the worst Jedi I've ever seen.
After defeating Sarah, Anakin takes on her master, Sindralik, who is actually played by Nick Gillard in the movie. Unfortunately, his big fight with Anakin does get cut out. The only bit that remains in the movie is this holo recording. Now, this is followed by one more level of Obi-Wan on Utapau, and this time you've got to take on both the droids and the clones. But at least now you can use the mind trick to make them fight amongst each other.
You'll do as I tell you.
Okay, so let me get this right. Not only do the clones have the walkers now, they also send out these giant flying flamethrower-wielding troopers. Where the hell were they when I was fighting Grievous? We then get a level with Anakin on Mustafar.
I have a message from Darth Sidious.
Message? What message?
This!
This is a pretty long level which has you grind through the facility taking on both the droids and the Neimoidians. And I don't know which ones were more annoying, the small guys with the shock batons or the big brutes. Now, a lesser tie-in game would have made this the entire level, bookended by a cutscene of Anakin wiping out the Separatist leaders. But this game actually lets you play through that section. It's almost like the developers knew they made this level a bit too long and annoying, so they gave you this as the payoff. And look, you can't just run past them to the door, you have to kill the Techno Union fridge guy. And then the level finally ends with Anakin taking on Nute Gunray in his ship. The penultimate level takes place back at the Jedi Temple, only this time you play as Obi-Wan. Holy shit, Yoda, what happened to your lightsaber? You know things are serious when Yoda whips out the magnum-sized lightsaber.
Attacking the clones are.
This stage is a nice inversion of the Anakin level, showing you the aftermath of all the damage. Plus, Obi-Wan also has this fun moment with Yoda.
A peculiar skill you have, Master Obi-Wan, for finding trouble.
And then we have the climactic battle itself, which is actually pretty faithful to the movie. It starts out by Padme's ship, then moves on to the control room, then the balcony, and then the bridge which collapses, and then finally we fight in the river of lava. And I like how Obi-Wan's dialogue ranges from desperate pleas to just straight out shit talking.
It's not too late! Come back to the light! I'm hardly breaking a sweat.
The game ends with this famous high ground scene, but interestingly enough, Anakin doesn't burn up in this version. I guess Uncle George wanted to keep that piece of trauma for the cinema. Now, technically that's the final level, but we also have the infamous alternate ending level. This is exactly the same as the previous level, but now you play as Anakin. And if you complete it, you see him defeat Obi-Wan, followed by this famous cutscene.
Excellent work, my apprentice. There are none left to oppose us. The galaxy is ours now. Your new weapon, Lord Vader.
No, the galaxy belongs to me.
And that's it for the campaign, but there are also a few bonus missions which have you play as different characters. The first one is the Magna Guards versus the clones on Utapau, then Grievous versus the clones, then we have Anakin platforming on Mustafar, Yoda wreaking havoc at the temple, look, it's just raining limbs, and finally Vader versus Old Ben on the Death Star. Damn, this old fella's pretty spry, look at him do kung fu kicks. In addition to that, we also have the multiplayer mode. As I mentioned before, there are 4 basic co-op horde mode levels, plus a beat-em-up style versus mode with 9 playable characters from the campaign and Old Ben. Some of these characters will have nice alternative costumes like Obi-Wan with Qui-Gon's saber and Darkside Anakin with the red blade. Each of the characters has their own special moves and fighting styles, like Syndralic moving super fast and Vader doing his classic choke. But for some reason, Ben's ultimate move is just him draining his own health and dying. Plus, there is also a Pulp Fiction Easter egg in the Mace Windu dialogue.
I will strike you down with great vengeance.
And so, there we have it, Revenge of the Sith, the game. So, how does it hold up 2 decades later? Well, great. This game was unashamedly over the top when it first came out. Add 20 years of nostalgia and memes to the mix and you're in for one hell of a trip. Now, I'm not going to say that the gameplay is perfect, no, it never was, not even when it came out. And elements like the fixed camera haven't aged too well. But overall, the gameplay is still solid and, most importantly, fun thanks to the variety of Force powers and Jedi moves that you can unlock. If you're looking to celebrate the movie's 20th anniversary, then this is a great way to do it. Unfortunately, as of the making of this video, there has been no remaster despite numerous requests from the fandom. However, you can still get the original Xbox version on the Microsoft Store, and this one will run on all modern Xbox consoles, so I would definitely pick that one up. But that's just my take. Please let me know your memories of Revenge of the Sith the game in the comments below. What was your favorite character, your favorite level, and your favorite one-liner?
I'll make you eat that blaster.
As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a big thanks to my existing patrons. If you've enjoyed this video, then please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.